This episode of What's the Recipe podcast is sponsored by Hooch Booch, a hard kombucha company inspired by the Roaring 20s, made with clean, real ingredients right here in Colorado with Rocky Mountain spring water. They not only have alcohol, but they also have their Corpse Reviver, an electrolyte drink helping you recover and raise your spirits without any spirits at all. And because you guys are listeners of What's the Recipe, you can use code RECIPE at drinkhoochbooch.com for 20% off of all merch and their Corpse Revivers. Or if you're local in Denver, you can head on in to Blind Tiger, their tap room, for your next date night or girls night and use code RECIPE for 20% off your first drink. Again, that's code RECIPE at drinkhoochbooch.com on all merch and on Corpse Revivers for 20% off, or come on into Blind Tiger and use it here. Code RECIPE.
Heck yeah. Shout out Hooch Booch. Their merch is swaggy too. I'm rocking their hat right now. Love it.
And if you listened to our first episode, we were drinking, well, I was drinking one of the actual hard kombuchas, but today we're going with their Corpse Reviver, which is their electrolyte drink, and it is tasty.
It's very refreshing. And right now I'm not drinking any alcohol, so it fits for me.
I know, we need to talk about that. Not on today's episode, but let us know if you guys want an episode on that.
Let's see. Recovering raging alcoholic. No, I'm just kidding. Doing like a 90-day little cleanse to see if I can do it. You know, I haven't done anything like that since I was like 13 years old. So why not?
So yeah, let us know if you guys want an episode on that. But today we're talking about burning the dish.
What does burning the dish mean?
I think because this is an episode, or not an episode, this is a podcast primarily about success, whether it's in your relationships, your career, your love, whatever it may be. This is about success at the end of the day. And something that really grinds my gears is when I see people succeeding, but they're not sharing their journey, or they're not sharing all of the failures, the times that they burned the dish in order to create that perfect meal, that success that they have now. So I think one thing that I really think is important for all young people who aspire to have something successful in their lives, which AKA I feel like is all of us, it's super important for us to hear about the times where people burned the dish, where they failed and they learned lessons.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that talking about burning the dish, or, you know, the failures in someone's success is extremely important. You know, I think that when you're talking to someone about how they've come to be, it's really easy to just talk about their success and talk about all the great things. But I think someone is really molded and really, I think people form amazing things through the mistakes that they've made and then the lessons that they've learned. It's like that famous saying that I like to live by, you know, nothing is a loss, everything is a lesson. But let's really dive into those losses and use those losses to understand how we can better ourselves and, you know, take those losses and understand what they've created.
Well, and here's why it's so important too for anybody listening, is because when you don't know the failures or the grit and the tenacity and the tears and the blood and the sweat that's been put into the success that people have, it seems unattainable. It seems like you can't achieve it yourself. And I think if there's anything that I want to do, because I know that we're going to be successful, confidence, #confidence.
Manifestation.
I think if it's anything that I want to do is I want to like tell people my journey. I want to share what I'm going through. I want to share that journey so that people can see what I'm doing and then be like, oh my gosh, look, she got here. I remember when she was there. And that makes me feel like I can get to where I want to be too, because I see the step by step.
Honestly, to be brutally honest, I don't think success is very relatable at all. You know, I think people in their day-to-day are so used to failing or so used to feeling like shit.
Or maybe saw that growing up.
Right. And they don't want to hear about your success, but maybe they want to hear about a time that you failed so they can relate to you and then respect you that much more. So burning the dish is really all about us speaking to people, you know, focusing on that part of their life or the lessons that they've learned through failure, through burning that dish, and what they've achieved from it and what lessons they've learned from it as well. And I think everyone in their day-to-day life has examples of burning the dish. And it's just something that really interests us.
Well, you bring up a good point too of relatability, because it humanizes people in a way. But I think that's my next point about why I think it's so important, is because we live in such a cancel culture society right now. And if you strip it down, what does cancel culture teach young children? Because Lucas and I have 2 young boys, and so it's on my mind, especially me, just like getting older and growing and like putting myself out there on social media. It's on my mind of this cancel culture, society that we live in. And I can't help but wonder, like, what does this teach people? And it teaches people
Perfection.
You make a mistake, you get canceled. You fuck up, you get exiled. You do something wrong because you're human, and you no longer have a seat at the table ever.
Yeah, I think it's scary. I think it's something that's been obviously relevant for a long time. And I think people, even, myself included sometimes, think that it's not okay to fail and it's not okay to make a mistake. But life is not supposed to be perfect all the time. I don't think you're supposed to have the answers 24/7 and just have this beautiful world unlocked to you and only see the beauty in it. And some of the people that I respect the most have in like seriously fucked up stories that, they've made a lot of mistakes in their life where they come from a really rough path. But what my favorite thing to do is learn about those specific scenarios and what shaped them to be the human beings that they are today. And I think that's really important to talk about. I think having someone on our podcast or speaking to someone about all of the glitz and glam and the amazing things that this person has achieved, like that's great. That's what we want to do, but it's a little basic at the same time. We want to talk about, or at least have a portion of our conversations with each other and the people that we speak to. We want to talk about their failures, and we want to talk about the lessons that they learned. And I think that right there is the key to a lot of their success.
I have kind of a theory or a hot take that I feel like this is maybe why you like documentaries as well. But I was thinking of Taylor Swift. Like, I love Taylor Swift's documentary, or what is it called? A documentary? Yeah.
I'd say it's a documentary for sure.
Yeah. I love her documentary because like I literally, and don't laugh at me, I like see myself in her. You know what I mean? Like, I see her step by step. I see her behind the scenes, like talking about like, should I make this statement? Should I not? Like, I want to say this, but I can't. Or like all of these different things that she did in her career that make me see like, oh, at the end of the day, she's performing on stage and she's selling out tours and she's selling out CDs, but she's also a human being making mistakes. And I think even if you take Jake Paul's documentary, for example, like they show you how many times they fucked up. And the reason they do that is because, one, not only does it make you think that you can do it too, but it also makes them human. You empathize with them, and then you want to see them succeed even more.
Yeah, it's real. It's true. It's raw. That's why I love documentaries.
Real, true, raw. What's the Recipe Podcast?
Boom. I should get that tatted on my thigh. My next tat. But I like documentaries so much because it's fact. It's based off of a true story, and I find that shit to be time well spent. I don't know. Watching stuff these days kind of gives me anxiety that isn't like based on a true story or isn't true, because I feel like I'm kind of wasting time for some reason. I don't know why I feel that way, but
because if you're not learning, like, what are you doing?
Yeah, or if you're not, consuming something that inspires you that's real. Like, I think I just need to prove to myself all the time that, these crazy situations and these people, like we're talking about today, have these gnarly stories and have these failures that have brought them to where they are. And that's why I love watching documentaries, because not only does it talk about the success that you see blatantly, I want to know about the details. I want to know the recipe to that success. Yeah. AKA why this podcast is perfect.
And so going back to the cancel culture thing real quick, because that's something that I've been like wanting to speak on, because
cancel culture?
Yeah. Because I think that it's something that people are scared to speak on, because they're scared. It's like kind of one of those things that like, don't even speak about it. Don't even look at it. Don't even talk about it. Because like people are so scared to even get canceled or say the wrong thing.
Right.
And I think for me, I'm so about learning and growing and failing and learning and growing and failing and learning and growing and failing, that to me, cancel culture just seems so inhumane. And look, don't get me wrong, I'm a believer in consequence, but I'm not a believer in canceling. And so that's also why I want this like burning the dish kind of topic to be brought up between us, but then also with our guests, because I want to give people a chance to talk about how they found their feedback and their lessons in that failure.
Right. Yeah. Cancel culture is scary because it's scary, right? I think it's pretty gross, but at the end of the day, I think it's up to you to get canceled or not. You know, everyone who's been canceled but isn't canceled anymore, I think just didn't really change anything about themselves. Just kind of weathered the storm, and people like have a super short attention span anyways, you know?
Well, that's a good point, because I was listening to The Toast today and they were talking about Ashton Kutcher. You know what's going on with all of them?
No, I don't.
Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis, apparently, they wrote a letter of character about Danny, whatever his name is, who was on that 70s show with them because he got convicted for rape.
Yeah, I know that.
So they wrote a character like letter
saying that he shouldn't be convicted of rape.
And they literally are like have like founded an organization for like anti-sexual assault and sexual abuse.
Well, I love Ashton Kutcher.
I know. And Mila Kunis.
Like he dedicated his life to the child trafficking.
So they basically wrote this like kind of, you know, in support of Danny, because obviously they've been friends for so many years.
Right.
And they were getting so much hate.
Maybe they genuinely think that he did not rape these women.
Right. And so, but he got convicted. But anyway, Ashton Kutcher just like announced that he's stepping down as chairman from his organization. And The Toast was talking about like,
whoa,
this feels so this doesn't make any sense, because so now you're going to like be kind of supporting a perpetrator versus a victim by writing a letter, but then you're not standing by it, and then you're going to step down from your organization and then not help.
Yeah, I think that's totally him succumbing to cancel culture.
And so they said,
not being like, fuck you guys.
Exactly. So Jackie was like, so now you're standing for nothing instead of standing for something.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. It's a great point. Like, people don't, and Matthew McConaughey said this in an interview with Ed Milet. He said, don't be a nice guy, be a good man.
Right.
A good man stands for something. And again, like, no one's standing for rapists and whatever the fuck, but like, stand for something. Or like, what the fuck do you stand for?
Yeah, I agree. I think cancel culture, it's like the individual can lead and almost like facilitate his own cancel after, or
he can either make himself canceled,
or like
not.
Totally close the loop of the whole cancel, or they can, you know, be like, well, you can love me, you can hate me, I don't really care. And then people are like, all right, I respect that, I'm not going to cancel you anymore.
Wait, they were saying the same thing about Drew Barrymore too, because I guess with this whole like writers strike, SAG strike, she like said she was going to bring her show back, but then didn't, and like posted a video crying and like deleted it, but then said she was going to bring it back again, and then was like, no.
Yeah, I think people are just terrified of the opinions of others.
Exactly. But I think that, well, one, I think when you know yourself and you feel really good about who you are, you stand by what you have to say.
I agree.
A lot easier. But again, I think it's this whole concept of like burning the dish is actually leading you one step closer to creating that perfect meal at the end of the day. And for me, I know you like the saying, every loss is a lesson. I really like failure is feedback. And so I actually want to pull up the Instagram, because
pull up the Instagram app. I am pulling up right now,
because I actually ran a couple polls on my Instagram asking people about like their thoughts on failure, and I thought it'd be interesting for you to hear. So the first thing that I said was, does your fear of failure hold you back? Yes or no? And 84% of people said yes, 16% of people said no.
I think that's really common. I probably would have voted yes as well. I think it's really easy for people to have this amazing idea, but not even take the steps to execute it because they are afraid of the failure part. Mm-hmm. So then they're immediately like, oh, why am I going to waste all this time because I'm going to fail anyways? You know, I think that's a very common thought. And I'd be lying if I didn't do the same thing from time to time, you know?
Then the second one was, do you wish that failure didn't scare you? 86% said yes. 14%, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, who wants failure to let them stop themselves from doing something.
But you know what I found the most interesting was the last poll that I ran. And it said, if failure scares you, why? And I said, hard on myself, scared of what others will think, and then making mistakes feels too big to overcome.
Let me guess. Was that? I bet you the biggest one was hard on myself.
Yep, which I was shocked by. 50% of people said hard on myself.
Yeah.
And then 31% said scared of what other people will think, and then 19% said making mistakes feels too big.
I think everyone is their own biggest critic.
No, I was so shocked by that.
Right? I don't know. I think if someone says that you're like a dumbass, that could be fine. Like, okay, you can say that I'm a dumbass. That's someone else's. But if you tell yourself that you're a dumbass, that's where you really see the demise. You know, because everyone, in my opinion, is their own biggest critic. So once you convince yourself of something, it's really hard to get out of it. Just like, you know, people with like these weird complexes of like someone who obviously, let's say, is skinny, but they think they're fat. All of their outside opinions.
Well, that's called body dysmorphia.
Well, yeah, body dysmorphia. It's the same thing. They're their biggest enemy. You know, it's like that. It's that fear of being hard on yourself. If you're, in my opinion, if you're hard on yourself, like, who else do you have to convince you to not be hard on yourself? You have to like find that within to like.
Well, for me, it goes back. I think this is why I was shocked by that answer, was because for me, it goes back to, why are you hard on yourself? Because of your beliefs that you have about yourself. Who most often infiltrates and plants the seeds of your beliefs? Either your parents, authority figures, society, school systems, like your teachers.
I think trial and error too. You know, I think you can.
You mean like evidence?
Yeah, evidence for sure.
So like if somebody fails over and over and over, and then they start identifying as a failure.
Yeah, I think that's very easy. You know, if someone has tried something 100 different times and they failed every time, it's like, yep, that's me.
Yeah.
You know?
But what if it took them 101 times?
Yeah, it's
to
like
find the thing.
It's that famous photo of like the guy in the cave, who is like, you know, has the pickaxe, and they're going for like the diamonds or whatever.
Uh-huh.
One of them has the pickaxe, and you know, it's like an image of him. He just needed to make one more swing at it, and he would have hit the diamonds. But it's like him walking away. You know, like all upset. You know, he's dug this whole entire hole.
Yeah.
He's got just one more swing, but he doesn't take that one last swing.
Wait, that's a photo or painting?
Yeah, no, it's like a cartoon GIF that I've seen.
I kind of want to see it.
Yeah,
I want to have that in my house.
It's not like an art piece. It's not as.
Well, the way that you explained it was pretty like.
Yeah, but I guess it always takes that 101 or what have you to really understand. You
right.
know? That it's kind of funny. When I was a sales development representative, an SDR, shout out to all my SDRs listening to this. Your job is to make cold calls and cold emails every day, right? One of the hardest sales jobs ever. You get the phone hung up on you all day, every day. And most of the time you have to hit this specific call metric in order for, you know, your manager to stay off your ass, in order for, you know, statistics and your stats are telling your bosses that you're doing a good job. And there was a situation where I was having a rough couple of weeks, and I, you know, was making, you know, 25, 28 average calls a day. And I'm like, you know, today I'm going to make 40 phone calls. You know, I'm going to double what I normally do just to see if it works. And I shit you not, on my 40th phone call, number 40, I booked a meeting, you know, so it's just that same situation.
Yeah.
But then that single moment for me carried for like 3 months, just that confidence of that moment happening. Like, if I just make that one more call, or if I just push that one more little bit, you know, I will achieve what I want.
Well, this is why I say beliefs, because what your beliefs are is really, your beliefs are instilled in you, again, like I said, from everyone else around you, mostly like your conditioning, but it's your choice to identify with them or to change the narrative by finding new evidence against it. And so again, like you're saying, it's really kind of a slippery slope to start identifying with like the failures. But when you get that one bit of evidence that like, okay, if I go one more time, I'm not a failure, or like that one bit of evidence that I did something, it gives you your brain that literal like physical confidence of like, this exists.
Right.
So I believe that I can do it.
It's the nature of the beast. All the documentaries I watch, it's always that one time, that one extra time that makes sense.
And what it is like that one extra, that just, here's what I say to all my clients is, you have to find the evidence to change the belief. So find the evidence that proves your belief wrong. If you believe that you are antisocial and awkward, go put yourself in certain social situations where you don't feel that way. And your belief system will slowly start to disintegrate, because now you're showing your brain, oh, I went to this social event and I found a friend and I'm not awkward and they loved me and whatever.
Right.
So it's like, how many times can you go find this evidence that contradicts your belief system? Because that's how you change your beliefs. That's how you get to where you want to be, is by identifying with the new evidence versus the old belief system.
Yeah. And I think the first step, even creating some positive belief before that step of going, like, let's say someone who is antisocial, using your example, and going into a setting, you know, where they are surrounded by friends or what have you. The fact that they actually like drove themselves to that setting and like woke or made the decision, like, I'm going to change it up today and I'm going to, you know, combat the little voice in my head, right? Which is your biggest critic, which is why that was the highest rated, you know,
your ego
answer. That step in itself is a huge confidence booster as well.
Yeah.
Like me, I'm on this 90-day, like, no alcohol kick. And the first 15, 20 days, I was never put in a situation where I was like offered a drink. So it was super easy for me. I was like, oh, okay, I got this. This is a breeze, until I'm at, you know, sitting at this sick Mexican restaurant. The vibes are, you know, vibing. It's a weekend. I get offered, you know, a ice cold beer and I'm like, oh shit, that looks delicious. Like, but when I told my buddy who offered me that beer, I was like, no, I'm good. I'm just drinking water tonight. Right after, and he was like, okay, cool. And then right after I made that decision for myself, the euphoria of confidence and the euphoria of, wow, I had the strength to say no to that beer on like the middle of a Saturday. I could have easily drinking that beer and like ended my streak, but I didn't, and I was on cloud nine for the rest of the day.
Makes you feel like you can do anything.
Right. It totally does.
Yeah.
You know, and you build those little moments upon yourself and you like start feeling good about yourself, which is nice.
Right. And so I feel like, again, to get to that, you know, the next time is really, I think we're speaking on, you have to fail over and over and over and over to get to that point of like, no, I'm going to do something about this.
Right.
And then you do something about it. And then that's where the kind of success snowball effect happens.
And that's why we're going to ask people who we speak to, you know, about their failures, because the failures are what make the success.
Yeah.
And that's why we think, you know, the whole topic of burning the dish is super important to touch on.
Yep. It's also relatable because I literally burn every single pan that I use. So that's
I
my
don't even
toxic
know what
trait.
to say right now.
That is my toxic trait.
We have gone through so many. It's like we only have cast iron now.
Yeah.
We have the maybe 2 pans that have survived.
Even cast iron, I like find a way to make it rust.
I wouldn't say rust. I'm pretty good at cleaning them, but yeah, our 2 like remaining pans that have somehow skipped out on Amanda's wrath are still like
it's coming for them.
Are still killing it.
It's
but
coming.
Yeah, you
Their
love
day's
just cooking shit and forgetting about it. And I'm like, babe, what's that smell? You're like, oh my gosh. I'm like, no, not again.
I've got a lot to do, okay? Anyway.
She stays burning the dish. That's why I don't let her cook dinner. You had someone comment on one of your Instagram, like,
some troll
what kind of mother are you not cooking dinner for your family? Maybe you have a husband that likes to fucking cook. What's wrong with that?
These days I don't even clap back because obviously this person's projecting and like miserable, and that's on growth. But like 2020 mans would have been like, oh yeah, you want to tussle?
Tussle.
I did block him though.
You did?
Yeah, he's blocked.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway, I want to wrap this episode up with us kind of touching on some actual real life examples of how we've burned the dish or maybe could have been perceived as burning the dishes. And so I guess I will share first because I feel like you're more corporate. I'm more like, I've been on this entrepreneurial journey for like the last, 3 years. And so there's been a lot more trial and error in mine, I feel like, in a way. What?
I'm just thinking of times that I've burned the dish in my corporate life.
A lot?
I'm like laughing to myself. No, I wouldn't say a lot, but I definitely have a couple of examples.
Okay, I'll kind of walk you guys through a few of mine just like quickly. But I think the first thing that I think would have maybe been perceived as like burning the dish, or like I actually kind of took it as that in the beginning, was one, I had a podcast called Just Man's the Podcast. It was my original podcast, the first thing I've ever did.
It's the OG.
So I started a blog, right? But then I was doing Instagram, and blog and Instagram were the two things I was doing for like years. But then 2020 came and I started a podcast, and I was like, this is like the thing that's going to, make me what it's going to give me everything I want, right? And so I did that for a year. And afterwards, I wasn't satisfied. I was just like, you know what? I want to do something else. I want to take this to the next level. So I was like, how can I create a community that feels more interactive, right? Because I was just getting on a podcast and talking to you guys, but I wanted more interaction. So then I created a membership community called The Pretty Naked. And I did that for about a year. And then I stopped that. And so I think that The Pretty Naked and the podcast were the two things where I was like, these kind of feel like failures in a way because I did them for a year and then I stopped them. And I had a moment actually where I was like, what is it about me that I like can't do things for longer than a year?
You really can't.
But
even if they're good, you're like, I think I should change it up. I'm like, babe, like this is going well. Like you're okay.
So here is the thing that I feel like we can talk about too, is I think that a lot of burning the dish, you're right, actually, even the fear of failure is kind of brought on by yourself.
Did you just say I was right?
Yeah. But I
could get used to that.
Yeah, soak that one up because I don't know if you're going to hear it again. But anyway, I think that the fear of failure can also be something that's brought on by yourself, but I also think failure can be brought on by yourself. And I think
it's mostly brought on by yourself.
I have a tendency of like self-sabotaging, and I've worked through that with my coach. But I think the other piece of it is like I feel like I have a good idea of knowing when I need to like move on to the next thing, because both the podcast and The Pretty Naked were great learning lessons for me, but I knew that they were not my end all be all.
Right. I hear you. So what was the lesson that you learned through stopping those things?
Well,
Would you say that those were dishes that were burned though?
Well,
like,
that's the thing.
That was a mistake?
No, I wasn't, but that's why I said perceived failure. So I think that like people on the outside looking in could have looked at it as like, oh, she like stopped her membership community. Like that failed,
Yeah, I think that's...
Or the podcast, like, oh, she stopped her podcast, that failed. Because mind you, not only did I have Just Man's the Podcast, then I turned it into The Pretty Naked Podcast, and I originally put that behind The Pretty Naked, so it was behind a paywall. And then I was like, no, I don't want to do this because no one's fucking buying it. And I'm creating great episodes, so I'm going to put it free. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to change it to The Pretty Naked Podcast. And then it's going to be the Cultivating Connection podcast. And then it's going to be Accidental Parents. And now it's this, you know what I mean? Like I changed it so many times, but I think that it seemed like failures while I was doing them, or while I was choosing to end them at the time, because it was this like thing I had where I was like, why can't I do anything longer than a year? Why is nothing sticking? But really what it was feedback. These perceived failures on my end, and then maybe for people looking in, this was feedback for me, because what I learned from the podcast was I love talking on a mic, just not necessarily by myself. What I learned from The Pretty Naked was that I loved connecting with women and hosting certain events, but I didn't want to host other people to come on and do all the things. I didn't want to be the person doing the back end. I wanted to be more like in front and kind of like client facing, if you will.
How corporate of you.
And in person. I kind of got over the virtual really quick. I wanted to do more in-person things. So these things really taught me a lot. It taught me that I didn't want to do anything alone on a podcast. And it taught me that I don't want to be the person doing the back end. I would rather go like host events, you know, for my community or like other people's communities, but I don't want to be doing the back end shit.
Right. So you starting all of these different concepts and not following through or staying consistent with them were not failures to you or losses to you. They were lessons.
Yeah. And I think it's because like the reason that we're sitting here today doing What's the Recipe podcast is because I did Just Man's the podcast, because I did The Pretty Naked, because I did Accidental Parents, because I did all of that shit.
Is What's the Recipe podcast going to stick this time?
Yes. It's mark my fucking words. Mark my fucking words. If you guys see us not following through with this, you can call me a failure. I'll let you guys have that one.
No, you don't want to do that. Yeah, burning the dish is a great topic. I think.
Am I done talking about myself? Are you going to go into yours?
That was a very long-winded.
Well, can I ask?
The dish story, I will say.
Rude. Can I like ask you to talk about yours instead of you being like, okay, bitch, you're done?
Yeah, for sure.
Because the other one I want to talk.
There's more.
Well, the other thing I want to talk about is
have your space.
Thank you.
I'm all ears.
Is being a health coach and creating, you know, my own business around it with like a one-on-one program and then a group program. And
you have an offering out there right now?
I do.
Right?
So I have, well, when this episode goes live, it would have already been the last one of it. Because again, I kind of realized I wanted to stop doing mindset and wellness coaching, but that was after 2 years, not one. So I proved to myself evidence that I could do it for longer than 2 years.
I think you're an incredible mindset coach.
Well, and
I mean, you have a lot of clients who really went through your course and worked with you, who you changed their life, you know?
Well, and here's the thing. I'm not stopping it for forever. I just know that right now, with being a mom and wanting to do this podcast, my energy is needed elsewhere. I'm going to come back to that for sure. But I'm just not taking like one-on-one group program clients right now.
Right.
But what I want to say with that is like, when I started health coaching, I had no fucking idea what to do. And I think that was the first time that I looked at, you know, I had The Pretty Naked, I had my podcast, and I like kind of pivoted from those. That was the first time that I was like, okay, it's okay to pivot. Like, it's okay to just like see what sticks, see what doesn't. But then I wanted to launch a group program back in the fall of 2022. And literally I like released it and fucking crickets. No one bid on it. No one wanted to do it. I was like, oh my God, I'm the biggest fucking phony loser failure ever. And I remember you kind of being like, oh, like, it's okay, babe. Like, you're fine.
That is my role.
But in
that scenario, my role is to support you.
Well, and here's the thing too. I think it's a lot for anyone listening. If you are trying to start something and you're having an issue with this like idea of failure or like receiving failure or hearing the word no, you need a support system, because that's also what gets you through like the hard days. Because you were really good at getting me through like, this is not failure. Like, you're fine. Just get up. You can do it again. Like, you know?
Yeah. Cause I always respected the stories of people burning the dish. It's like, everyone that is so successful, CEOs, like founders of companies, are like, this is like my 13th concept, you know, or like, you know, this is, I was going to say another like concept thing, but yeah, I always looked at that.
This is like my 12th business.
Yeah, I always looked at that as being super healthy. I always was like, yeah, babe, no one showed up, but this is awesome. Like, that's the fact that you put yourself out there and you know, just created something in general is like, that fucking fires me up.
Well, and that's why it's important to talk about it, because it gives you the perspective that you need, right? It's like, this is what I want to give you guys on this podcast, is the perspective of like, you're failing, good.
Yeah,
good.
You're burning the dish, good.
Good.
And that's
Try
why
again.
That's why we want to really have this be a huge part of our conversations, because, you know, someone who I really look up to, and people who we talk to on this podcast, I want to know about their concepts that failed. You know, I want to know about them. You know, it's like every superstar has that story of when they perform to one fucking person at the coffee shop.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's beauty of it. And that's the way I looked at that situation.
I always think of
Like,
Travis Scott when you say like
right. Look at videos of him.
Go look up Travis Scott like when he first started.
And that's why I always have known what you're capable of, and I have no doubt that, one day like you will be who you want to be. So I think that's just like a beautiful moment that one day you're going to be able to, tell someone else that I started something and no one signed up for it, because that gives them the confidence that, hey, it's okay to fail. It's okay to burn that dish and just kind of, take it and see where it leads you.
Well, and I want to ask you to share yours, but the last thing I want to wrap up is to say that I launched that group program again after no one literally wanted to join it in April and sold it out all 10 spots in like a week and a half.
Right.
So there is that for you. But then also
it was the universe giving that to you for not just giving up.
It was feedback because I took that group program that I launched and I was like, okay, how can I do this better? How can I do this differently? How can I do this where it lands? But then the other thing is I feel so strongly about this that if I didn't do Just Man's the podcast, if I didn't do the Pretty Naked, if I didn't change my podcast 5 million times, we would not be sitting here right now doing this concept, which I feel so strongly passionate about.
We'd be in Malibu in our mansion.
No.
Because those Just Mans would have just popped off.
No, I really don't think so because I got so burnt out of it because I was doing it alone.
Right.
So that's my 2 cents.
Nice.
Tell me about the times that you've burned the dish, Mr. Lucas Fowler. Lucas Surge Fowler.
Throw my middle name out there, huh?
Should I say your social security code too?
Jeez. Now everyone knows.
I actually think I know it. 5.
Relax. Relax. Yeah, so I work in the corporate space. I'm in sales. Someone's got to pay our fucking bills.
True.
Come on now. Jesus. And I absolutely love it. I sell an incredible product. I am in the medical software space. I work with private ear, nose, and throat practices. And I sell them software that essentially runs their practice. I worked as a SDR or, a BDR, making cold calls, sending cold emails for about 1.5 years, and went through the fire, worked my way up, and got promoted to like account executive about 1 year ago. So me, learning to not have a big ego or learning to not be overly competitive is a lesson learned all the time, every day. But some of the biggest points of me burning the dish in my career as an account executive, as like a closer so far, are things that I think maybe people can relate to. Where once I was promoted to account executive, it's like I think I have all this pressure on me where I have to be perfect. Mm-hmm. Where I think when you have, especially being the youngest, sales rep on the team, for some delusional way of thinking, I thought I had to like know it all, right? Be perfect, have all the answers. And it really comes down to having all the answers. So it's like,
it comes down to pride. Right.
It comes down to pride, ego, and I'm still working through it. And there's just situations and a big lesson or a scenario where I burn the dish. It was, when I'm speaking to doctors who are asking their questions about our features and functionalities and what we can do, it's like if I don't have the answer to a question, because first and foremost, going into these calls, not as much anymore, but when I'm taking my first couple calls, I'm like, oh man, am I going to get asked a question that I don't know about? It's like, what questions are they going to ask me? I have to have the answers to everything. I have to know about every little aspect of this product, blah, blah, blah. When I'm speaking to doctors who have been buying this sort of software like for longer than I've been alive, right? So there were situations and scenarios where, and it's all about gaining credibility, right? Gaining trust, where I would be in situations. Why are you laughing?
Because I'm just picturing the doctor be like,
yeah.
Does this guy know fucking anything?
Where, these doctors or, these potential clients or prospects would ask me these questions, and my ego would totally come into play, and I would give them a bullshit answer. I would lie on the spot. Right?
Instead of just being like, I don't know.
Instead of literally the most perfect answer on the face of the earth is if you don't know something, literally say, that's a great question. I don't know the answer to that question. Let's table that. As soon as we're done with this call, I'm going to get that answer for you and I'll follow up. That answer right there gains more credibility and respect than even like the right answer.
Especially if you do follow through and
Absolutely.
get the answer.
So early in my career, I was put in situations where
Wait, so you're telling me that you bring Lucas facts into your career?
I may or may not sometimes. I don't anymore. I learned a big lesson because I burned the dish, right? I burned a dish where I was speaking to a doctor and trying to gain credibility, and I told him things that were not true, and I made promises that I could not keep, and, answers that just were not appropriate. And I had to go back to this doctor and tell him that I was wrong. And, I really lost a lot of respect for him. And he thought, I was some sleazy salesman.
Did you sell to him?
I did not. No. I didn't. And I deserved not to. Mm-hmm. But when I started, I was like, okay, after that, I was like, dude, I was really disappointed in myself. And I took that as a major lesson. And from now on, everyone who's listening, who's in sales,
or just in general.
Yeah, that huge lesson for me was just say you don't know the answer. It's okay. You're not supposed to know every aspect or every answer to what you're selling or anything in life, right? Doctors or clients and people love the honesty of you being a fucking human being, being like, wow, that's a really great question. I don't know the answer to that. That's okay, it's totally cool that you don't know the answer to that.
Well, do you know what really, really gets people off who are older than us? Is watching us hungry and willing and ready to learn.
Right.
And if you just come off as an arrogant,
you have nothing
ignorant
to learn.
Fucker when you're I'm 22, 23, 25 years old and I know everything and I have nothing to learn from you, it's go fuck yourself.
Right.
But when these people are older than us and they see us in the position that they once were, and we're here saying, I don't know much, but I want to learn from you, they eat that shit up.
Totally. And it gives them an opportunity to teach you something.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, he doesn't know the answer to this. I'm not going to give him shit for it. He's going to get me the answer anyways.
Yeah.
And I'm also teaching him. And for me, it's now I love when people ask me questions that I don't know the answer to, because it gives me an opportunity, one, to learn, and it gives me an opportunity to just be honest with these people. Hey, I don't know that answer. Really great question. Let's table it. I'm going to work on that answer and I'll get back to you. So that was a big burn the dish moment for me in my career. And another one.
Well, wait, can I just say one thing before that?
Yeah.
Because I think that's a really, really, really good tip. I think that's a really good example because I think it speaks to imposter syndrome. And I think that people have imposter syndrome because they're scared to not know anything.
Right.
And if you have imposter syndrome and you're listening, try admitting that you don't know much.
I think that's a great first step.
See what that does. Just see what it does. Okay, continue.
Yeah, I think that's a great first step. And yeah, so another kind of burn the dish moment for me. So I work virtually, right? So 99.9% of my calls, especially with clients, are over a Google Meet. Right, it's over totally online. I'm not in person with these people, so it's very easy to get caught up in some shit talking per se. And this is kind of where I'm leading to, where sometimes I have clients or prospects, I should say, who aren't necessarily clients yet, but when I'm doing demonstrations, they'll kind of enter the call on their computer, right? But sometimes their audio doesn't work on the computer, so they have to then call in on their phone. So there's two of them in the meeting where they can hear me on both platforms, but on the computer I can't hear them. So that's how they kind of talk to me through their phone. They can see me and hear me on their computer, but so I can hear them, they're kind of in the meeting twice, whatever. So I'm in a demonstration or a meeting with an office manager who I really believe that, our products can help them, right? But a lot of the times I'm dealing with, quote unquote, status quo, where people don't like to change, even if that change is going to make them more money, is going to create a more efficient workflow for their staff, whatever. So, and sometimes you just have those clients or prospects that you can show them the world and they're like, I'll get back to you when I can, right? And my goal and my job is to always set next steps. So after my initial demonstration with them, I'm trying to now set my next step. And she and this person is just being really hesitant on setting this next step with me after I just uncovered a lot of issues that we can solve. So it's kind of that situation where, let me get back to you sort of thing. And I can push a little bit there, which I did. But then at the end of the day, I just got to respect what this other human being is telling me. So, okay, cool. I will follow up with you next week to schedule next steps. And so I'm like, all right, well, let's conclude. If there's no more outstanding questions for me, let's conclude the demonstration, hop off the Google Meet, and I will send you my follow-up email, and I will give you a call next week, Tuesday, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool, concluded it. This person was in the meeting twice on their computer and on their audio phone. Cannot hear me through the computer, but can hear me through the audio. This person cancels out and leaves the meeting on their computer. So it's bloop. And it's been a long demonstration, so I totally forgot that she was still on audio on her phone. And as soon as this person leaves the meeting on their computer, I immediately say out loud, man, she fucking kills me. And then I look at my computer and she's still dialed in. And then as soon as I look at the computer, she bloop, then exits out. And I'm like, oh fuck, she totally heard me say that. 100%. So I immediately emailed her and I made some stupid excuse.
No, you did not.
Yeah.
No, you did not. Did you literally addressed it?
I addressed it. I had to.
Oh no.
I had to address it. But
dude, what were we talking about earlier? Stick to what you were saying and don't fucking waver.
I know. I totally, but I didn't address saying, I totally made up some elaborate story. And this is me learning through the fire. It wasn't about me. No, but I I lied and I said you had a cat. we don't have any animals in our house. But after I sent my follow-up email,
an office manager.
Yeah,
she's gonna listen to this podcast.
I know. I'm thinking the whole time. She's gonna listen to this and hear. And
what's her name?
I cannot say.
We love you. Sometimes,
But what my excuse was, I sent my follow-up email, right, and recap the demonstration, what have you. And at the end, I said, I'm extremely embarrassed because my wife has a cat. We are not cat people at all. I was like, how am I going to get around this? And I'm sure she thinks this is bullshit. Why wouldn't
you just say, I'm extremely embarrassed. I've had a long fucking day and I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I don't know.
Or just nothing.
I probably should have said nothing. But I said, my wife has a cat. The cat came into my office and was causing havoc on my desk the entire demonstration. And when we concluded the demonstration, I had to express that her cat fucking kills me sometimes.
Was your camera on?
Yeah, but
so she would have seen the cat.
No, she couldn't see. No, no. Stop. You're convincing me now that. Well, anyways, I had
What'd she say? Did she reply?
No, didn't reply.
Did you tell her?
I am still trying to set that next step.
No.
Yeah, of course.
You're still trying?
Yeah.
She hasn't replied to you?
My lesson in burning
Wait, she really has not replied to you. How long has it been?
It's only been 48 hours. So.
And these people, this was recent?
Yeah, these people that I work with are extremely busy human beings. But my lesson there was to make sure that everyone has exited out of the meeting, even the ones that call in.
That's your only lesson?
Before you talk shit.
Maybe let's not talk shit.
No, I think it's healthy to talk shit when you need to.
True. It actually is. I think I went through a period of my life.
Gotta get it out,
I think I went through a period of my life where I was anti-shit talking. That's so mean. Don't do that. And now I'm I love a good tea. I love good tea time.
Because then I got to go upstairs and what? I probably, no, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't have addressed it.
I don't think you should have addressed it. Stick to your word.
But
stick to your word and then just don't fucking sell her.
Right. That's me burning the dish.
Well, I hope that you guys found some laughter and joy and found this a little relatable. Again, we really are excited to chat with other people about times where they burn the dish, because I think at the end of the day, it humanizes people. It shows people like it's okay at the end of the day, because we're all human and we all make mistakes, and that's perfectly perfect.
Everybody makes mistakes.
Everybody has those days.
Everybody knows what
I'm talking about. Everybody gets that way.
Is that Kesha?
That's Miley Cyrus.
It is.
Hannah Montana, actually, I believe.
Hannah Montana. Hannah Montana. Hannah Montana.
Okay, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening. As always, you can find us on TikTok, which is at What's the Recipe Pod. You can find us on Instagram, which is at What's the Recipe Pod. And there are people staring at us, and it's making me uncomfortable.
Why? Let them
Also,
look.
guys, if you are in the Denver area, please come to Blind Tiger and use code RECIPE to get a drink for 20% off. Because, again, you can have it for the Corpse Survivor or you can have it for any drink. But all of their hard kombuchas are fire. It's like the best canned beverage that I've ever had that's alcoholic. So, again, find us on Instagram, find us on TikTok, and...
This episode is 86.
See you guys.